All right. Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday. No, it's Wednesday. Wednesday, August 14th. I am back in Southwest Florida after a couple of weeks of vacation in northern Wisconsin. And today is the first day I've been back on the water down here after Hurricane Debbie, Tropical Storm Debbie, I guess when it hit here. And it's been over a week since the storm hit, and just checking out the water conditions. Gorgeous morning. The water is as expected. There's a lot of debris, a lot of lawn, branches, palm fronds, tons of mangrove seeds floating around. The water is a nice brown mocha color, so if you're a fan of coffee in the morning, this might be the perfect watercolor for you. Sun's just coming up. Took some water samples this morning for Florida Fish and Wildlife just to see if we've got any red tide. I don't think we do. Just initially, I can't smell any red tide out here, which is always good. It's always the first indication that there's red tide when your throat starts to tickle and you're not able to breathe that well. Again, let me just do a quick spin around. We're looking at a shoal right here. You can't really see it's high tide right now, but we're just sitting over a shoal. And for those of you who are not familiar with the shoals, that's nothing more than just a fancy word for a sandbar. There's a pelican for the pelicans always struggle after these after storms, and here comes a cormorant right above me. You can't see it, but pelicans are always struggling after these storms to find good fish, good eats. They typically then have to fly out a little bit further out into the Gulf to get to find their fish. You can see how just like the rest of us, the sun is typically what wakes up the pelicans. Right over here is a big island. You can't really see it because of the sun, but the pelicans hang out there, and not all the water birds. Water birds are actually, they roost in trees. They don't necessarily have like a nest like a lot of birds, but they roost up in trees. So they all kind of hang out in these islands all over the intercoastal waterway, and then in the morning they take off to go try to start their day and go get some fish. But they're gonna fly further out into the Gulf, like I said, after this hurricane passed through. Another awesome thing you gotta watch out for after a hurricane, especially not a hurricane, I don't want to say hurricane because it really wasn't a hurricane here, but it was a tropical storm. But I'm in southern Sarasota in Florida, and we had about 16 inches of rain just over one day. You may have seen some news reports of Sarasota, and the flooding was pretty crazy in a lot of areas. But what you have to watch out for, this salt water, it becomes very brackish. Brackish is a combination fresh and salt. So it's been a while now, and it's definitely more salt, but when it becomes combo fresh and salt, the alligators get a little confused and they decide, you know what, I'm gonna go for a dip over here in the intercoastal waterway. And that's a little bit of a wake-up call when you start to see some alligators out here. There's a lot of things like, like I said, there's lawn stuff, there's branches, all that kind of junk floating around out here. And it's been a week, so the big branches, the big sticks, that kind of stuff that could actually harm this boat are pretty much gone. I'm riding on a Hobie ultralight kayak this morning. Hobie makes an incredible amount of pedal boats for fishing, for recreation. They do a stand-up paddle board, or pedal board, I guess you'd call it. I've had a bunch of them. The ultralight is one of my absolute favorites because it is so light. It's under 20 pounds, even fully loaded. It's just about 20 pounds. We're looking at over on the shore here. This is Nokomis, Florida. Just on the other side of the intercoastal is Venice, Florida. High tide was about 50 minutes ago, so we've got very little current, which is nice always. And then we have the highest tide possible for today, right now. So it's a good time to be out here and not have to worry about running into sandbars, oyster reefs, any of that stuff. One of my absolute favorite homes here. As I'm pedaling by here, I always wonder, wow, what does that person do? Or did. They might be retired. But if you're a fan of the Magnum PI show, especially the original, I always call this the Magnum PI house because it reminds me of the Robin Masters estate. I've talked to the folks that live there a few times when they've been on their dock over here. But I've never had the guts to say, hey, what do you do? Or what did you do? And I should do that one day. What have I been doing wrong in my 30-year career? I know, buying Hobie kayaks, that was my problem. Whew. It's gonna be warm down here in Southwest Florida today. It's already about upper 70s. I think the humidity is pushing about 80% at least. My sunglasses are fogging up. We'll see if we can't find any manatees or dolphins this morning, though it's going to be a tough one. Those bad boys have, especially them dolphins, are probably out fishing out in the Gulf. So this is like a big three-way intersection here, actually four-way, I guess you'd call it. All the boats and so forth come in from the intercoastal waterway to different areas, and they go out to the Gulf of Mexico right there. Some more of that debris that we, lawn and landscaping, whatever. Again, it's high tide now, so we've been able to, we got a lot of stuff that just gets washed out, then washed back in, washed out, washed back in. It takes about a good 3 to 4 weeks for the intercoastal to really clean itself up and watercolor and debris to get out of here. There's a blue heron right there. He's kind of on the back of the back of that boat lift. I don't know how well you can see him. I'm going to see him again here in a minute. You can see him standing there all stoic. He's hanging out, looking for a kayaker to kick up some fish for him. Yeah, so the tropical storm, when it hit off the coast here in Southwest Florida, you know, a lot of people get caught up in they go, oh, the storm had landfall in, you know, Northwest Florida. I guess all the big publicity is always where the eye of the storm's gonna hit. But what folks don't know many times is the eye, yes, is very impactful from wind. But really what does the most damage is what comes before and, more importantly, after the eye. And those are just bands of rain. And in the case here in Sarasota, with 16 inches of rain happening in a 24-hour period of time, which is just unbelievable, it really put a hurt on a lot of people here. We haven't had that much rain that quickly in a very, very long time. Even when Hurricane Ian hit, believe it or not, we didn't get that much rain. A lot of wind. And over the past few years, since Ian, a lot of homes have been built in Sarasota after COVID craziness. And it really damaged the natural flow of water. So places that were not considered flood zones, and even with the latest flood zone maps, they weren't considered flood zones, were flooded. If you look up near Lakewood Ranch, Florida, it's a huge development that's been growing over the past few years. Thousands of homes. Just, they've gone in and just blocked any sort of natural flow that we had, put retention ponds and so forth in there. And those areas are not in a flood zone, supposedly, but many of those areas were devastated. Again, I don't know if any studies will be done, what really can be done, but the folks that were flooded out because they weren't in flood zones, more than likely they didn't have flood insurance. So, that being said, they are out of luck when it comes to insurance for the most part. They might get some, but it's a sad state of affairs for those folks. Honestly, it's always a good idea, even if you don't live in a flood zone, to get flood insurance, even if it has to be the lowest amount. Yeah, you might only get $20,000, $30,000 in insurance money, but that could go a long way when you're looking to do some repairs on your house or whatever. Still absolutely gorgeous out here. I'm heading north right now. Sun's coming up to my right. There's a lot of crap in the water back here in this bay. Every so often I can feel my pedals hit them, hit something. I'm on vacation this week from work, so I've got some time, but when I go during the week, I'm typically out here in the dark, and I certainly would not be out in the dark today, or for the next couple of weeks at least. Whew. There's an osprey up there. If you're a kayaking fan, you haven't had a chance to try out these pedal kayaks, I highly recommend them. I've been using Hobie pedal kayaks now for about 9 years. They'll totally change your life. You'll get addicted, then all you'll want to do is be on these pedal kayaks. If you live around water, it's a great investment if you want to get some good exercise. I can do about 5 kilometers around the intercoastal in about 50 minutes to an hour, depending upon currents and tides and so forth. Hobie has a huge line of these kayaks. I kind of steer clear here. I see some breath rings. I call them breath rings. They're not officially called breath rings, but you see some breath rings. That typically means there's a manatee underneath. And what you don't want to do is startle the manatee with your pedals, because those bad boys can flip you over pretty easily. They don't mean to flip you over, but you just startle them. Having a few network issues today. Whoa, that was a big fish right there. Went right under the boat. The Hobies, just a little instructional thing here. These pedals are adjustable, so you're able to, if you're tall, from 6'3", 6'4", You can stretch them all the way out, even the under 5 feet tall. These boats work out great for you. I've taken people out as young as 10, I think, and as old as 82 on these kayaks, and they can. They're very simple to use and simple to operate. Just as a little instructional, there's a tiller right here that controls the rudder in the back. So it's as simple as just turning tiller left to go right. Everything's kick up, meaning kick up pedals, kick up fins on the pedal drive, kick up fin for the rudder. So if you were to beach the boat without pulling up the rudder or pedals, it'll automatically kick up. Or the rudder itself will also kick up by itself. Makes life easier, and you don't worry about jumping off. A lot of fiberglass and kind of plastic shell kayaks as well. So if you're into hardcore fishing, or if you're going to be going on rivers, those types of things, the inflatables are not for you. You want something that's going to be durable. So let's say I want to go fishing into those mangroves right there. Well, no problem getting in there with this Hobie. It only goes forward. I don't have a reverse on here. Hobie does have the Mirage drives that have the reverse. It's on their higher end kayaks, or you can also just get the drive itself and put it on the ultralight if you wanted to. But if you're on a river, for example, where there might be a lot of rocks, you're going through more shallow water, you don't want to risk it going with the ultralight. These ultralights have a pretty durable shell, but I'm not gonna lie, I had to repair quite a few ultralights. The ultralight especially. I've had other Hobie inflatables, never an issue, but the ultralight, I've had more. I don't want to make it sound like it's a bad thing. It's just I've had to repair a few holes. And I've also noticed through friends, I'm gonna shoot the camera over here for a second. I see a lot of activity. I'm gonna slowly move out. Because the water's so dark right now, I can't see a darn thing underneath. But it looked like some manatees right there. And again, I apologize, I can't give you the full nature tour today. This water is just dark and I can't see underneath it. Typically, about 85% of the year, 90% of the year, let's just see how we're doing over here. The water is so clear here, you can see to the bottom, even the deepest depths. Say that 10 times fast. So you see sea rays, turtles, every sort of fish you can imagine, manatees, dolphins swimming underneath you. But after storms like this, it's a crapshoot what you're gonna get. Again, the water's pretty dark. The beach is also, I was over at the beach this morning across the street, taking some water samples, and yeah, the water's not, wouldn't it be a great beach day? I mean, the sand is nice, obviously, but the water's dark. And just because the water is dark doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just dark. I mean, there's a lot of waters in the world that are clear, that are filled with bad stuff. So don't ever let that stop you, unless you know for a fact that there's something bad in the water, like sewage and that kind of stuff, which we had plenty of last week after all that rain. And if you're just getting up and me talking about sewage is ruining your breakfast, I apologize for that. Whew, that sun right over there is hot. I'm about 10 minutes from my launch site. This is a great workout though. So if you're looking for a nice workout for especially for your legs and you want to get on the water, just do something different. Doing a Hobie pedal kayak for about an hour. If you do it every day, awesome. But if you can't, just a couple times a week, you're gonna burn some calories. And you can go as fast as you want, as slow as you want. You're getting some good movement out there. You can do this on ponds, lakes, rivers, oceans. Now, what I will say is this particular Hobie, the way it's designed, it's big, flat. There's a lot of displacement in the water. It takes more energy than, say, the Hobie Lynx, for example. That's kind of the next step up, but it has a plastic shell on there. I was able to use a Hobie Lynx last week at my brother's house up in northern Wisconsin, and we also had the ultralights, and it's a great comparison. The Hobie Lynx is, in my opinion, probably one of the best kayaks that Hobie's made for just general all-around usage. You can put a lot of accessories on there. You can take it. You can beach the boat without fear of it, popping a hole. I will say this: it's not as durable as, say, a Hobie Outback or something with a more rigid design. But again, the weight of the Lynx it's a one-person launch and you don't need a trailer for it. You can put it in the back of a pickup truck. You could put it on top of a car top carrier, but it's about 11 feet long. But the ultralight, if you're worried about being able to, put this on top of your car or easily put it in the back of like an SUV or truck, the ultralight's the way to go. I don't recommend deflating the ultralights and trying to fold them up. Hobie says, oh yeah, you can do that. And they give you a nice bag. They make you think, oh, you could just bring this with you anywhere you go. And I think they may even say that on their website. I don't even know. But let me be the first to tell you that I know more than a couple of people that have deflated their kayaks regularly, or they've deflated them, folded them back up to put them back in the bag to bring them with them to a vacation destination or wherever they're going, only to find out that, the boat's not holding the air any longer for more than a couple hours and starts to slowly leak. So that's just my opinion. That's not a fact, but like I said, I know a few people that it has happened to, including myself. But all the boats that I have kept inflated, yeah, you'll naturally lose air. That's just a matter of, that's like any inflatable. But it doesn't go nearly as quick as if you've deflated, folded up, and then reinflate. Now Hobie ships a little pump with these kayaks, which is about, I'm not going to say it. They're not great pumps. They have no gauge on them, so you have no idea how much pressure you've put in there, so that becomes pretty useless. If you guys have ever filled up a any sort of inflatable paddleboard or kayak, you know, it takes an enormous amount of pressure to do so. And it's hard to gauge just by feeling it that, oh, that's 10 psi or that's 100 psi. You can't really get a good feeling for how much pressure is what. So if you do get an ultralight, I highly recommend getting a proper inflatable pump. They also ship a manual pump too, with a gauge, which is very helpful. And they're not incredibly difficult to pump up manually either. Just takes a while. So that open space over there is where I am heading to. It's coming up on 8 o'clock a.m. Another hour or so, you'd be melting out here. So I'm gonna try to get in as quick as I can, get home and start my day. Get this board washed down. It's another very important tip. Make sure if you're in salt water to rinse your boat and all the accessories when you get home with fresh water. They'll start to corrode and wear out much more quickly. Whew. All right, guys, that's about it for me today. Hope you had a nice, peaceful morning eating with me talking. Now that I've seen the water quality, I probably won't be back out here for another few days. Give the water a little time to heal. I'll talk to you soon. Have a great one.